What if the very thing you've been trying to escape, that restless, empty feeling when nothing seems interesting anymore, is actually your mind's way of preparing for breakthrough? In the next few minutes, I'm going to share something that might sound impossible at first, but by the end, you'll understand why boredom might actually be your greatest creative gift. Most people treat boredom like a disease to be cured immediately. Phone out, scroll engaged, mind numbed. But what if I told you that some of history's most brilliant minds didn't fight their boredom? They embraced it, cultivated it, and used it as a doorway to their most profound insights. Stay with me because this changes everything you think you know about creativity, productivity, and the nature of genius itself. What you're about to discover will transform not just how you experience those quiet, restless moments, but how you access the deepest wells of your own brilliance. Have you noticed how the moment you feel even a hint of boredom, your hand instinctively reaches for your phone? There's something happening beneath the surface that most of us miss because we're focused on avoiding the discomfort of having nothing to do. Picture this. It's Sunday afternoon. You finished your immediate tasks, there's nothing urgent demanding your attention, and suddenly you feel it, that familiar restlessness. Your mind starts scanning for something, anything to fill the void. Maybe you open social media, maybe you start cleaning things that don't need cleaning, maybe you create busy work just to avoid sitting with the emptiness. Sound familiar? You're not alone. We've been conditioned to believe that boredom is a problem to be solved, a gap to be filled, a sign that we're not living life to the fullest. But what if this entire framework is backwards? I understand why we flee from boredom. It can feel uncomfortable, even anxiety-provoking. When our minds aren't occupied with external stimulation, we're left alone with our thoughts, and that can feel vulnerable. We've been taught that productivity equals worth, that constant motion equals progress, that busy equals important. But here's what's really happening when you feel bored. Your brain is actually entering a state that neuroscientists call the default mode network, a neural pattern that emerges when your mind isn't focused on the outside world. This isn't emptiness, it's preparation. Your brain is literally rewiring itself, making new connections, processing experiences, and preparing for creative breakthroughs. Think about a garden in winter. To the untrained eye, it looks dead, empty, boring. But beneath the surface, roots are deepening, nutrients are being absorbed, and the soil is preparing for spring's explosion of life. Your boredom is your mental winter, not a barren wasteland, but a fertile ground preparing for something beautiful. Yet we've created a culture that's terrified of this natural rhythm. We filled every moment with noise, every silence with stimulation, every pause with productivity. We've forgotten that brilliance doesn't come from constant input. It emerges from the spaciousness between inputs. The real tragedy isn't that we feel bored sometimes. The real tragedy is that we've lost access to the profound creativity that boredom naturally generates. We've traded our birthright of brilliance for the temporary comfort of constant distraction. Let me tell you about Maya, a software engineer who worked at one of Silicon Valley's most innovative companies. She was known for her problem-solving abilities, her creative solutions, and her knack for seeing what others missed. But if you asked her colleagues when her best ideas came, they'd all give you the same answer during her staring contests with the ceiling. Maya had a ritual that seemed almost ridiculous to her hyper-productive coworkers. Every day, usually around 3 p.m. when her energy started to lag, she would stop working completely. She'd lean back in her chair, put her hands behind her head, and literally stare at the ceiling for 10 to 15 minutes. No phone, no computer, no notebook, just her and the acoustic tiles above her desk. Her coworkers would joke about it. Maya's having another one of her ceiling meetings, they'd say. But Maya knew something they didn't. In those moments of deliberate boredom, when she allowed her mind to wander without direction or purpose, her best solutions would emerge. The breakthrough came during a particularly challenging project. The team had been stuck on a complex algorithm for weeks. Traditional approaches weren't working, and the deadline was approaching fast. While everyone else was frantically coding, researching, and brainstorming, Maya was doing her usual ceiling stare. On the surface, it looked like she was checking out while her team was drowning, but 15 minutes later, she quietly approached the whiteboard and sketched out an elegant solution that none of them had considered. It was so simple, so obvious in retrospect that everyone wondered why they hadn't thought of it before. The answer was simple: they were thinking too hard. Maya had learned to trust the wisdom of not thinking, the intelligence of allowing her mind to wander in boredom until it found its own path to brilliance. This story reveals something profound about the nature of creativity and problem-solving. While most people equate thinking with forced mental effort, true insight often comes from the opposite, from creating enough mental space for new connections to form naturally. Boredom isn't the absence of creativity, it's creativity's natural incubation period. Like a seed that needs darkness to germinate, brilliant ideas need the spaciousness of an unstimulated mind to emerge. Maya understood what ancient wisdom traditions have known for millennia. The most profound insights come not from the noise of constant thinking, but from the silence between thoughts. She had learned to befriend her boredom, to trust it, and to use it as a doorway to her deepest intelligence. Here's what transforms everything about boredom. It's not a void to be filled, it's a frequency to be tuned into. The moments when you feel most bored are actually when your mind is most ready to receive its own brilliance. Think about it this way: when a radio is scanning for a station, it passes through static and silence before it locks onto a clear signal. Your boredom is like that scanning process. Your mind is searching for the frequency of its own creative intelligence. Most people panic during the static phase. They immediately grab for any distraction to avoid the discomfort of not knowing what to do with themselves. But what if the static isn't the problem? What if the static is the process? While most people try to escape boredom through external stimulation, true brilliance comes from diving deeper into the boredom itself. It's like the difference between skimming across the surface of a lake and diving deep enough to discover the treasures on the bottom. Here's the profound shift. Boredom isn't the enemy of creativity, it's creativity's best friend. It's not a problem to be solved, but a doorway to be entered. When you stop fighting boredom and start exploring it, you discover that what you thought was emptiness is actually fullness waiting to be recognized. Consider how many of your best ideas have come not when you were actively trying to think of them, but when you were doing something mundane: walking, showering, washing dishes, lying in bed just before sleep. These weren't accidents, they were glimpses of your mind's natural creative process when it's not being forced or directed. The reason we associate boredom with brilliance throughout history is simple. Brilliant people learned to be comfortable with mental stillness. They didn't see unstimulated time as wasted time, they saw it as fertile time. Einstein called it combinatory play, the mental activity that happens when your mind is free to make unexpected connections between seemingly unrelated ideas. But this kind of play can only happen when there's enough mental space for ideas to move around freely. When you're constantly consuming information, constantly stimulated, constantly busy, your mind becomes like a crowded room where nothing can move. But when you embrace boredom, you create the spaciousness necessary for new combinations to emerge. This is why the most creative people often seem to have the most boring routines. They understand that external simplicity creates internal complexity. They know that the less they stimulate their minds from the outside, the more their minds can stimulate themselves from the inside. The first foundation is learning to recognize the difference between boredom and restlessness. True boredom isn't agitation, it's a quiet alertness, like a cat sitting perfectly still but completely awake. When you feel the urge to escape into distraction, pause and notice what's actually happening in your body and mind. Start by sitting with boredom for just 60 seconds without reaching for any external stimulation. Notice how your body feels. Is there tension? Where? Notice your breathing. Is it shallow or deep? Notice your thoughts. Are they racing or settling? This isn't about forcing yourself to be bored. It's about becoming curious about what boredom actually feels like when you're not running from it. Most people have never actually experienced pure boredom because they escape it too quickly. Practice the boredom breath. When you feel the familiar urge to grab your phone or find something to do, take 3 deep breaths instead. In the first breath, notice the urge. In the second breath, notice the sensation of wanting to escape. In the third breath, notice what happens when you don't act on the urge. Learn to distinguish between different types of mental stillness. There's anxious emptiness, which feels agitated and uncomfortable. There's numbed emptiness, which feels heavy and dull. And there's fertile emptiness, which feels spacious and alive with possibility. The second foundation is learning to act from boredom rather than despite it. This means using your bored state as a creative launching pad rather than something to overcome. When you feel genuinely bored, instead of immediately seeking stimulation, ask yourself, what wants to emerge from the stillness? Sometimes it's a creative project you've been avoiding. Sometimes it's a conversation you need to have. Sometimes it's simply rest. Practice boredom journaling. Keep a notebook specifically for capturing what comes up when you're bored. Don't write about your boredom, write from it. Let your hand move across the page without predetermined purpose. You'll be amazed at what emerges. Create boredom appointments with yourself. Schedule times when you deliberately do nothing. No agenda, no goal, no productivity. Just you and whatever wants to arise from the stillness. Learn to distinguish between inspired action and escape action. Inspired action feels energizing and alive, even if it's challenging. Escape action feels compulsive and leaves you feeling depleted afterward. The third foundation is understanding that brilliance has its own timeline. You can't force insights, but you can create the conditions where they naturally emerge. This means learning to be comfortable with not knowing what's going to happen next. Most people fill every moment with predetermined activity because uncertainty feels uncomfortable, but uncertainty is where creativity lives. Practice productive waiting, times when you're actively doing nothing but staying alert and available. This isn't passive waiting, it's engaged openness. Develop what I call insight patience, the ability to trust that when you need an idea, it will come, but only if you've created enough space for it to emerge. This is different from hoping or wishing. It's a confident trust in your mind's natural creative process. Learn to see boredom as investment time rather than wasted time. Every moment you spend in genuine boredom is like making a deposit in your creative bank account. The returns may not be immediate, but they're inevitable. The fourth foundation is learning to express what emerges from your boredom without judgment or editing. This is about trusting the intelligence of your unstimulated mind. Many people get great ideas during boredom, but then immediately judge them as silly or impractical. The key is to capture first and evaluate later. Your bored mind often sees possibilities that your analytical mind would dismiss too quickly. Practice boredom expression. Whatever comes up during your unstimulated time, find a way to express it. Draw it, write it, speak it aloud, move your body in response to it. The form doesn't matter, the expression does. Create boredom artifacts, poems, sketches, voice memos, or any other creative outputs that emerge from your times of doing nothing. Keep them in a special place and review them periodically. You'll start to see patterns and themes that reveal your deeper creative intelligence. Learn to trust your first impulse when it comes from genuine boredom. Your unstimulated mind often knows things your thinking mind hasn't figured out yet. Now that you understand the foundations, let's explore the deeper practice of transforming boredom into brilliance. This isn't just about being okay with boredom, it's about actively using it as a tool for accessing your highest creative potential. Find a comfortable position and close your eyes. Instead of trying to focus on anything specific, deliberately cultivate the feeling of having nothing to do and nowhere to go. This isn't about emptying your mind, it's about letting your mind be exactly as it is without trying to change or improve it. Notice when your mind starts generating things to think about. Instead of following these thoughts or pushing them away, simply observe them arising and passing like clouds in the sky. This is your creativity in action, your mind naturally generating new combinations and possibilities. Stay with this practice for at least 10 minutes. The first few minutes might feel uncomfortable as your mind adjusts to not having a specific task, but as you settle into the boredom, you'll notice a shift from restlessness to alertness, from emptiness to spaciousness. When you feel bored, instead of immediately seeking stimulation, get curious about the boredom itself. Ask yourself, what is this feeling trying to tell me? What wants to emerge from this stillness? What would happen if I stayed with this instead of escaping it? This isn't about analyzing your boredom intellectually, it's about approaching it with the same curiosity you might have about a new place you're exploring. What does this internal landscape feel like? What's here that you haven't noticed before? Learn to see boredom as your mind's way of inviting you to create. When you feel that familiar restlessness, instead of reaching for your phone, reach for a piece of paper or open a voice memo app or simply start moving your body in response to how you feel. Don't worry about creating anything good or useful. The goal isn't to produce, it's to respond. Your boredom is a creative impulse that's looking for expression. Give it permission to express itself however it wants. Keep a special notebook or digital document where you capture any insights, ideas, or inspirations that emerge during your times of boredom. Review these regularly to see patterns and themes. You'll start to notice that your bored mind has access to information and perspectives that your busy mind misses. This isn't magic, it's your natural intelligence functioning without the interference of constant external stimulation. Pay attention to when your boredom naturally occurs. Is it at certain times of day, after certain activities, during certain seasons or weather patterns? Your boredom has its own rhythm, and learning to recognize this rhythm allows you to work with it rather than against it. Some people are most creatively bored in the morning, others in the afternoon, others late at night. There's no right or wrong pattern, only your unique creative rhythm waiting to be discovered and honored. As you become more skilled at working with boredom, you can begin to use it for specific creative challenges and breakthrough moments. When you're stuck on a difficult problem, instead of pushing harder to find a solution, try the opposite approach. Set the problem aside completely and enter into deliberate boredom. Let your mind wander away from the problem entirely. Often, the solution will emerge when you're not actively seeking it. This happens because your conscious mind stops interfering with the natural problem-solving abilities of your unconscious mind. The most innovative ideas often come from the intersection of boredom and attention. When you're genuinely bored but still alert and available, your mind is free to make connections that it couldn't make when it was focused on specific tasks. Practice innovation boredom. Regularly schedule times when you deliberately do nothing while staying open to new possibilities. This isn't passive waiting, it's active availability. If you're experiencing a creative block, it might be because you're trying too hard to be creative. Sometimes the best thing you can do is stop trying altogether and allow yourself to be completely bored with your creative work. This doesn't mean giving up, it means giving your creativity space to breathe. Many artists and writers report that their best work comes after periods of feeling completely uninspired and bored with their craft. Boredom teaches you to be comfortable with not knowing what's going to happen next. This is a crucial skill for creativity because truly original ideas can't be planned or predicted, they can only be discovered. As you become more comfortable with boredom, you'll also become more comfortable with uncertainty in general. This opens up possibilities that weren't available when you needed to know and control every moment. When you truly embrace boredom as a doorway to brilliance, something profound shifts in your relationship with yourself and your creative potential. You stop seeing unstimulated time as wasted time and start seeing it as the most valuable time of all. You begin to recognize that your best ideas have always come from moments of mental stillness, not mental effort. You realize that creativity isn't something you have to manufacture, it's something you have to allow. Your relationship with productivity changes too. Instead of measuring your worth by how busy you are, you start measuring it by how available you are to your own inner wisdom. Instead of filling every moment with activity, you start creating space for spontaneous insight. You develop what I call creative confidence, the trust that when you need an idea, it will come, but only if you've created the conditions for it to emerge. This confidence comes from repeatedly experiencing the intelligence of your unstimulated mind. People might notice that you seem different, more relaxed, more creative, more tuned into possibilities that others miss. This isn't because you're working harder at being creative, it's because you're working less hard at avoiding boredom. You start to see boredom everywhere as creative opportunity. Waiting in line, commuting, having a few minutes between meetings, these moments become precious gifts rather than inconveniences. Your problem-solving abilities improve dramatically because you're no longer trying to force solutions. You learn to trust the process of not knowing, confident that clarity will emerge when the time is right. Most importantly, you reclaim your birthright of brilliance. You remember that creativity isn't a special talent reserved for a few, it's the natural expression of a mind that's given space to be itself. To fully integrate this understanding into your daily life, start small and be consistent. You don't need to overhaul your entire schedule. You just need to create small pockets of deliberate boredom throughout your day. Before you check your phone, email, or news, spend 5 minutes in deliberate boredom. Sit quietly, look out the window, or simply lie in bed without any agenda. Notice what wants to emerge from this stillness. This sets a tone for the day that prioritizes inner awareness over external stimulation. It reminds you that your creativity is always available, waiting for moments of spaciousness. Use the natural transitions in your day, between meetings, between tasks, between activities, as opportunities for micro-boredom. Instead of immediately jumping to the next thing, take a moment to simply be present with nothing to do. These transition moments are gold mines for creativity because your mind is naturally shifting gears. If you give it space during these shifts, insights often emerge. Before bed, spend 10 minutes in deliberate boredom without any screens or stimulation. This helps your mind process the day and often generates insights about challenges you're facing. Many people report that their best ideas come just before sleep, when their minds are settling but still alert. This is your natural creative intelligence working without interference. Set aside longer periods on weekends for deeper boredom practices. This might be an hour of doing absolutely nothing, or it might be engaging in very simple, repetitive activities like walking or gentle stretching without any entertainment. These longer periods allow for deeper insights and more significant creative breakthroughs. They're like retreats for your creativity. Keep a special notebook where you record anything that emerges during your boredom practices. Don't judge or analyze, just capture. Over time, you'll see patterns and themes that reveal your deeper creative intelligence. Review your boredom journal regularly. You'll often find that ideas that seemed random or insignificant at the time are actually pieces of larger insights waiting to be assembled. As you master the art of turning boredom into brilliance, the benefits extend far beyond just having better ideas. Your entire relationship with life becomes more creative, more flexible, more alive. You become more comfortable with uncertainty because you've learned to trust that clarity emerges from confusion when given enough space. You become more patient because you've experienced how the best things often come after periods of apparent emptiness. Your relationships improve because you're no longer constantly distracted or seeking stimulation. You become more present, more attentive, more able to notice the subtle beauty in ordinary moments. Your work becomes more effortless because you're no longer forcing solutions. You learn to work with your natural creative rhythms rather than against them. Most importantly, you reclaim your natural state of wonder. When you're not constantly consuming pre-made entertainment and stimulation, you become more interested in the world around you. Ordinary things become fascinating. Simple moments become profound. This is the ultimate transformation, from someone who fears boredom to someone who treasures it, from someone who seeks brilliance outside themselves to someone who discovers it within the stillness of their own mind. Your boredom becomes your teacher, your empty moments become your most full, and your apparent inactivity becomes your most creative activity.
You discover that you didn't need to add anything to your life to access your brilliance. You just needed to subtract the constant noise that was covering it up. The path from boredom to brilliance isn't about changing who you are, it's about remembering who you've always been underneath the layers of distraction and stimulation. It's about coming home to the natural creativity that's been waiting patiently for you to give it space to emerge. And in that space, in that boredom, in that beautiful emptiness, you find not just ideas or insights, but the profound recognition that your ordinary mind, given extraordinary space, is capable of extraordinary things.